Young Americans for Liberty group, and we are a student group dedicated to advocating individual liberty and limited government, be it and also includes economic liberty, personal liberty, etc., and also to foster a discussion on the role of a free society and the principles of the society therein. Our speaker today is Howard Rahtz, who is a retired police captain from the Cincinnati Police Department. His career in law enforcement spans 18 years. He's held positions as a SWAT team negotiations team coordinator for the Cincinnati Police Department, where he was responsible for selection, training, and deployment of SWAT negotiators and technicians. He's also captain of the Cincinnati Police Department's Central Vice Control Section. He has a master's in rehab counseling from the University of Cincinnati, along with degrees from the Northwestern University School of Police Command and the Ohio Police Executive Leadership College. He has worked as a supervisor for a city-run methadone program in Cincinnati, and as an executive director of the Alcoholism Council, where he worked to establish treatment, intervention, and prevention programs in the Cincinnati community. He has also, he teaches at 2 Ohio Police Academies, and he's the author of Community Policing, a handbook for beat cops and supervisors, and understanding police use of force. So he's also a member of LEAP, which is Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. So without further ado, welcome Mr. Howard Rahtz.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
That was pretty weak. Let's try again. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
First off, let me say I'm really honored to be here. I know there's lots of other things that you could probably be occupying yourself with for the next hour or so, and for this many folks to be here, and it makes me feel really positive about Ohio U and the work that you guys are doing, and congratulations for it. The good news is, as Anthony said, I was in charge of the Vice Squad in Cincinnati, and as I look around, I don't recognize anybody, so that's a good thing. I'll say the other thing, he mentioned the 2 books that I wrote, and I know there's some criminal justice people here, and if any of you guys are one of the 43 people that bought either one of those books, thank you very much. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey here and the ideas I have about stopping the violence and ending this crazy war on drugs. And I'd like to hear from you guys on some things that you think, issues that are important to you, and then we'll try to deal with those. Not by design necessarily, but I'm probably one of the few people in the country who's worked on both sides of the drug equation. I spent 20 years working as a counselor, doing prevention programs, trying to establish education programs, intervention programs for drug-addicted people and their families. I was a counseling supervisor at one of the first methadone programs that was set up in the country, and that was at a time when heroin addiction was kind of sweeping across the country. There's a lot of concern about it. At age 42, I became a Cincinnati police officer, went to the academy, got out of the academy, and I got assigned a beat in the Over the Rhine district in Cincinnati. And we were at that time struggling. We were in the midst of the crack cocaine epidemic, which was kind of sweeping across the country. And it was interesting to me that the drug problem looked quite a bit different from out of a police uniform than it did from behind a counselor's desk. I was in charge of the police academy for several years. Had recruits in charge of firearms training, self-defense, and so got a good flavor. He mentioned the SWAT thing. We formed a hostage negotiation team, and I ran that team for a couple years, and so I had a nice career. And again, I'm not aware of anybody else in the country that's been kind of on both sides of this. At the end of my career, I got appointed I was a captain and got put in charge of our vice control unit, and we were the citywide drug enforcement arm for the city of Cincinnati. And the two things we had historically done was, one, we had a regional kind of setup that involved all the police agencies in the area, and their function was really looking for big traffickers. We were looking for people that were bringing in tractor trailers of drugs. We were looking for big quantities of stuff, huge amounts of money. And then on the other hand, we had what was referred to as the street corner unit. And the function of that unit, we did a lot of jump outs, buy bust. We sit in a car and watch somebody sell drugs, rush up on them, grab them. And I'm trying to tell you the total of the success of that was we arrested thousands and thousands of people. And what good we ever did, I'm not sure, and we can talk about some of that. So when I got down there, we kind of talking this over with the cops that were working there, and we decided that we would target wholesalers, that we had this unit that was after the big traffickers, and we had making all these arrests on guys on the street corners that were selling. So we thought, there's a missing element here, which from a business perspective was wholesalers. Who is providing all these guys on the street corner doing these drugs? So that there was a missing link there that we thought we would go after. So we formed a unit whose specialization was targeting what we called mid-level dealers. And I recruited the best folks I could find to do that, and we got some resources. We had a nice agreement with the feds. We had all this super secret technology, and we started. That was our job. And by any accounts, we were extremely successful. We seized record quantities of drugs. We seized record quantities of money. We got all kinds of weapons, and we would have once a week, once every 2 weeks, we'd have these press conferences that you guys have all seen. The headline will read, "Drug Kingpin Arrested," and the cops will pose, and there'll be this pile of drugs and a pile of money and some automatic weapons, and the police, and I was part of these. And we'd pose there, and everybody thought, great, this is really good. And I would ask my guys, man, in the last 2 weeks, we took down 4 of these guys that were providing all this drugs. And is anybody out walking around Cincinnati that can't find drugs today? I mean, do we have any impact? And the answer was always no. There's just more of it than we can kind of keep up with. So, some of you guys have a little different perspective that I'm going to talk about in terms of what you view as the major issue with drugs. The major issue for me is violence. And it's worldwide. The international drug market is twice as big as the international automobile market, twice as big as international gas and oil, $500 billion a year business. The number one producer of poppies in the world for heroin is Afghanistan. They've had record crops beginning about 2007. Most of the money that's generated out of drugs in Afghanistan goes to support the Taliban in fighting American troops there. Most of it's in the Helmand province in the south of the country under Taliban control, and it's money that's being funneled to the insurgency. On the Mexican border, if you've been following that, the violence there is totally out of control. There's a book by a guy named Charles Bowerman that I'd recommend all of you read. The title is Murder City. And it's basically his account of 1 year spent in Juarez and trying to track all the homicides that occurred. And in the first few days of 2008, the year he tracks, there's a police memorial in the city. And some people post notes on the police memorial, first week of January 2008. And the first note had a list of 5 officers. And at the top of the note it said, "For those who did not believe." And the list of 5 names under that was 5 police officers who'd been killed. And there was another note that said, for those who continue to refuse to believe, and there was a list of 17 officers, 12 of whom were killed over the next 2 months. A man named David Hartley from Denver and his wife, this February, are jet skiing on a lake on the border of Mexico and the United States, popular tourist place. And somehow in their jet ski travels, they run across some traffickers, and nobody really knows what was said or what occurred, but this guy is shot off his jet skis. His wife flees to the American side, and it's kind of a big issue on the border. The Mexican government, a little bit embarrassed by the incident and embarrassed in general by the amount of violence that's going on, appoints a man named Rolando Flores, one of their lead investigators, to be responsible for investigating this homicide, the homicide of David Hartley. 3 days after Detective Flores is assigned a case, he disappears. And 2 days later, his head is found in a suitcase delivered to the local police station. That kind of violence is occurring as we speak, and some of us take a little bit of comfort in the fact that Mexico's a long way off and it's drug dealers killing each other, and that's something I want to get back to at some point. Because don't you hear people say that all the time? Why are we worried about it? They're just killing each other. And shorthand for cops, when we would go to homicide scenes, shooting scenes, and I'd walk up as a boss, what happened, guys? And the standard phrase was, drug deal gone bad. And 90% of the time it was. So people kind of comfort themselves, they're just killing each other. So let's kind of put that in the parking lot and come back to it. In American cities, is this same sort of thing going on? Every day, if you scan the news, you will see people killed in drug transactions, innocent bystanders caught in crossfire, and we're just so used to it that we, unless it's sort of a very high profile thing, we just don't really do anything about it. In Cincinnati, the overwhelming majority of our homicides were drug related. That street drug transaction, where a person wanting to buy drugs comes up to a dealer and they have this interaction, is one of the most dangerous things anybody can put themselves in. These guys are in business because of their willingness and ability to use violence to control the market. And we have people who, like sheep going into the den of a wolf, just show up, yeah, I think I'll buy some dope, and end up getting hurt or worse. So again, my major goal in this is to work on the violence.